All right, YouTube, welcome to another edition of the Leadership Blend with your host, Ricardo Rice. In the studio today, we have Mr. Jeremy Harp. Say hello to the YouTube people.
Hello, YouTube.
He's going to be getting us ready for college. He's a return guest. He did amazing the first time, so I told him he had to come back, and I think he thought I was playing, but now he sees I was serious. So he's here, and we're getting ready to go live in about 1 minute, so everybody just hang on. It's going to be a very interesting show. And yeah, we're going to have fun. And also in the studio is one of my first interns, Miss Charnay, so we're going to show her real quick.
Hello.
Yeah, I know. I finally have a team, so isn't that amazing? There's a team. She's one of a team. So it's going to get real interesting around here. So just hang on for a couple of seconds, and we will be live.
Oh man, let me see. Uh-oh. Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm trying to.
It's so small.
All right, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, or I actually inclined to believe it might be a good night for some people, depending on where you are. But nevertheless, welcome to another edition of the Leadership Blend with your host, Ricardo D. Rice. I'm excited. It is the second show of the new year, and today is a very exciting day for me. So I'm going to jump right into it today. I actually put up my book on Amazon, so my pre-sale started today for my book, Calculated Conflict. So I am excited about that. Thank you. So yes, I finally forced myself to write the book. So it's kind of a not so much a how-to. It's kind of, you're getting all the information I paid for with my crazy 4 degrees. You're getting all that information in layman's terms. I'm teaching you how to be a good leader. And Calculated Conflict is going to be a series because I actually created a new leadership theory that will be introduced in book 2. So this is book 1. It's all about the introduction. So all that great information everybody seemed to enjoy when I first started the show about generations, Generation X, Generation Y, millennials, how you can differentiate what they do, their traits, their attributes, how they work in the workplace. All of that great information is going to be in the book, as well as, hey, I'm trying to get you to a point where you can sit on a forum with other leadership people and actually be able to hold your weight. So I actually go over such theories as Maslow's hierarchy of needs, situational leadership, transformational leadership. If you don't know what any of that stuff means, I promise you by the time you finish this book, you will. So you'll be able to hold your weight at those leadership tables you want to be at so bad. So go on out to Amazon and buy it. Just look up Calculated Conflict. It's only $12.99. You spend more than that on a combo meal at McDonald's. Which brings me to my next point. Yeah, today's going to be crazy. I went to Hardee's and brought a meal and ended up paying almost $10 for it. It was a burger.
Okay.
I didn't feel good about that because I passed on going to a full-service restaurant when I realized I could have gone over there. So the money you spend on a Hardee's meal, you spend $2 more to get this book. So go out and get it. You'll go to Amazon. It's actually on Amazon. You can get your ebook. The book actually comes out on February the 15th, but this is pre-sales. You want to go ahead and get it. Help me out. Go ahead and get it. All right, so today on this show, I have a return guest, a very special return guest. Mr. Jeremy Harp is with us today.
Hello.
And he's going to be getting us, we're going to do the other side of getting your child or yourself. I discovered the last time you was here, actually adults who want to go to college learned a lot from that show.
That's correct.
So today, we're going to go on the other side and talk about what happens when you get your acceptance letter, what should actually go in your admissions packet or your application packet, all that good stuff. We're going to cover that today because we are in January. So now is like prime time to be getting those kids ready because, come a couple of months from now, you can be running to Walmart trying to get little small refrigerators, trying to buy them blankets and pillows. So before you get to all that, we're going to get you ready so you can get to that stage. So you can go ahead and drop them off and say, bon voyage, I'm out of here. Figure it out. It's going to be great. All right, so we're going to jump right into it. So, Jeremy, introduce yourself again to the people. Tell them your background, all that good stuff.
Okay, well, hello everyone. Again, my name is Jeremy Harp. I am the founder and operator of the College Preparation Program. It's an organization here in Atlanta that helps prepare students, families, teachers, counselors on college preparation best practices. So I'm from the Atlanta area. I went to Banneker High School in College Park, then went to Yale University for undergrad. Then I went into education and really started to learn those tricks and tips about how to prepare students and families early for that college preparation and college application experience. So now I'm trying to give back, and again on this day of service and support on Martin Luther King Day, and just trying to do my best to create that society of college prep support.
And you wrote a book.
And I did write a book. So I have my own book. I know you mentioned your book earlier. So my book is The College Preparation Process. It's on my website at collegeprepatlanta.org. And yeah.
Yeah, and unlike my book, Jeremy's book has pictures and diagrams and stuff. So I feel some kind of way. I mean,
not as academic, yours is.
Look, my friends have been yelling at me for like 2 years because mostly everybody knows I was working on my doctorate. I was in dissertation. So a lot of the stuff that's in my book is actually a lot of my dissertation research. So like I said, y'all are getting a steal for all the hard work I had to do. But I love sharing, so it's going to be great, I promise you. But all my friends have been yelling at me because apparently as doctorate students, we're supposed to do a bunch of writing. I enjoy writing, but it's not something I do in my leisure time. Okay. So I'm a little behind the curve because my book should have been out, and I'm a little behind you too because your book has already been out. And like I said, his book is amazing. Okay, so there's a lot of books that are really stuffy and they really get into all the extras. Jeremy's book is very cut and dry. So you look at it, he has the pictures of everything you need to know. He actually took snapshots of certain things. There's actually a snapshot of Google in here. Like that threw me over. Like, Jeremy, you're so creative.
Well, I think that the point of that is to have a step-by-step walkthrough. So you can take any student and sit them down and say, here's what you need to do in order to get the information that you need to be well prepared for college. Because you need to try to understand what are the differences between colleges to know which one really fits you as an individual. And so that's a part of the book that helps anyone either sit down themselves or walk their son or daughter or family member or student through that process of discovering college information. And then the book is just a wealth of information about how to look at colleges and then how colleges look at you during this application time period to say, what are the things that are most important. It gives tips and tricks about applications, like what to write your essay on, what not to write your essay on. It's just a wealth of information in a very, very concise packet.
It's a beautiful book. I'm flipping through it now. So while he's talking, I'm flipping through it. It's just amazing. All right, so let's start. We're going to start from the beginning for the first two segments because I want to recap what we learned the first time. Because I know for me, the biggest thing we didn't get to really get into was graduation rates. And a lot of people had questions after the show was over with because much like myself, I didn't learn until later in life what graduations, the part that they play in this whole picture.
Right.
So I definitely want to make sure we tackle that today. But let's start from the beginning. So let's talk about FAFSA.
Okay.
So let's start there. What is FAFSA? Should they do FAFSA? All that good stuff. Let's start there.
So FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid. And you can find it at FAFSA.gov. So if they ask you to pay anything, do not go to that website. Do not pay a dime. It is a free application and free service.
Oh, and remember last week when I was doing my examples, I told you anything that ends in .gov is pretty much safe because those are typically government maintained websites. So .gov is usually safe. .org, nonprofits tend to use org or some other agencies tend to use org. .com is a tricky one. And anything that ends in .com, you need to really make sure you do your research on because those can be created by pretty much anybody. But I just want to throw that in there. So .gov is safe. Make sure it's .gov.
And just make sure if they ask you to take out your credit card or send in any sort of amount of money, do not do it, at least for this topic. But that's what the government sort of uses, and that's what colleges use to assess your need. And so that's the thing that really is the expectation of what you can afford to pay for your student loans or for your time in college. And so what you do is you fill out this form. It takes your W-2s. I know January is W-2 season and tax season.
I'm already seeing people. My Facebook is lit up from people going to buy cars and stuff already. It's amazing.
Well, the point of it is to try to make sure you get an accurate understanding of what your 2017 financial situation looked like, so that they can prepare for this coming adventure you're going to go on with college. And so what schools do is they assess your need, and you get an estimated family contribution. And based on your income for last year, that determines what your estimated family contribution is. And that's what really generates that financial aid that the schools will give you, what grants you're eligible for, like the Pell Grant or any other sort of financial aid. That's where it comes from, is the FAFSA.
There's an acronym they use for that, right? It's EFC. Is that the acronym they use?
Right.
All right, so when you
Estimated
see
family
EFC, that's what that stands for. Because I used to look at it all the time, and I was like, I don't know what this is, but it's got numbers by it, and, so we good, we can keep moving. But yeah, that's what that stands for.
Right. So that's the amount that that the government expects you to be able to pay based on your income. For most schools, that number doesn't matter, and so
Really?
Right, because if it's a private school or a public school, they're going to charge you what they're going to charge you regardless of what your EFC is. But they're only for need-based colleges. They will take into account, and a lot of them will only charge you what the government says that you can afford to pay.
Any of them off the top of your head?
I have a whole list right here.
I knew he's always prepared. I knew he'd be prepared.
Front and back.
Any colleges that we might recognize on this list?
So a lot of the top tier colleges like Emory,
Wow.
Vanderbilt, Duke, Stanford, MIT, those are all like need-based colleges, and a lot of the Ivy Leagues are as well. But they're more difficult to get into, but also they give you the most money in financial aid. And I have this list on my website. It's again collegeprepatlanta.org of what those need-based colleges are, or you could just search it or Google it or do whatever you need to.
Well, like you said, I'm looking at this list. So a lot of the top tier colleges are on this list, which is amazing to me. So including Georgetown.
And so with the only differences with the Ivy Leagues is even with they have income limits. So if you make less than $65,000 and go to an Ivy League school and you get a full scholarship simply by getting in. And that's the thing that a lot of people don't know is if your household income is less than a certain amount, then you get in, you go for free. Now, University of Pennsylvania is $120,000 and
For undergrad?
For undergrad.
Oh,
so if you make
God.
less than that, then you go to get a free Ivy League education.
So see, parents, your child can go to Harvard and all those good things. They just have to get those good grades and get those good SAT and ACT scores. It's not impossible. Jeremy just let you know it's not impossible. So stop dashing these kids' dreams. If they tell you they want to go to Harvard, if they can get good grades and get a good SAT and an ACT score, they have a shot, and it doesn't even come out your pocket. See, you already learned something today.
And can we say Yale? Since I
Oh my God, here we go. I knew eventually. I'm actually surprised because I think the last time we see he had his little Yale sweatshirt.
Hey,
I'm surprised. He looks formally dressed up. I started to wear sweatpants. The only reason I didn't wear sweatpants because I had an intern. Because normally I wear sweatpants. But yeah, he doesn't have one of his little Yale thing. But fine, we'll say Yale. It's Yale. They can go to Yale. They can go to Harvard, Georgetown. These things are within their scope, so they can actually go, for a free ride. So parents, keep that in mind that your child can go to Ivy League school and you don't have to pay a dime. So keep that in mind. All right, so rolling on.
absolutely. And so I think since it is January, it is the important time to start doing those things and to filling out that FAFSA, because that's where a lot of the financial aid is going to come from. And whether your student has already applied and even has already gotten in, or if they have yet to apply, it's still important to do that FAFSA as soon as you can with your W-2 and financial information. Because the earlier you apply, the earlier you submit your financial information, the more likely the school is able to give you more money. Because if you wait until the last minute, then they're just scraping the bottom of the barrel trying to find money for you and your student. So
Well,
do
and
it as soon as possible.
I didn't know that. I didn't learn that lesson until late in life. That apparently there's a pot, and the people who apply first for FAFSA are at the bottom of the pot, which is kind of like thinking of putting the pot on the stove. The water that's lower to the bottom is going to heat faster because it's closer to the flame.
Right.
Same ideology with FAFSA. The people that apply first, they're at the bottom of the pot, so they hit the flame first, meaning they get the most money. So the sooner you go ahead and fill out your FAFSA for your child, the more money they're probably inclined to get because they're at the bottom of the pot. The later you get in, the higher you are at the top of the pot, you're not going to feel the heat, which means you're not going to feel that money. So, I like to give crazy examples. I'm learning the crazy examples resonate. So that's a crazy example, but it's reality. The sooner you do your FAFSA, the more likely you are to get more money. And that's what it really boils down to.
Absolutely. And I think that another good thing is looking at and understanding what financial aid is from a school's perspective and how they're charging you. Because one of the things that I was thinking about using, and an example is a restaurant. And in the sense that you go there and they give you a receipt of the things that you bought or whatever. But if you don't really know what those charges are, you can't really avoid them, one. And two, you can't really distinguish between one school's cost and another school's cost on a one-to-one level. And that's what my book sort of goes over as well, is what are those components that make up, financial aid, and how do they compare with the different types of colleges?
So what are some of those components that make up that the college looks at?
All right, so one of them is looking at the different labels with terms. So a lot of people say tuition. They use tuition, build expenses, and cost of attendance. Those are all three different things. And so when you sort of tease out what those differences are, you can say, all right, this school has high tuition but low build expenses, or this other one has. Okay, let me just explain what that is. So the
Because
tuition,
I was getting ready to go there, right?
Yeah,
He can read my face. I was like, okay, this is new, so this is new.
All right, so the tuition is mostly just what the academic portion of it costs. And so sometimes different schools have high or low tuition based on how popular it is to quote unquote raise tuition.
Which actually, while we on tuition, because now that you're the expert and you're here, I can ask some of these questions. So what exactly is built in tuition? When we say tuition, is that just, do they factor in like dorm life? Do they factor in books or anything? Or we're just talking about, what are we looking at?
That's really the cost of the professors and the more academic side of it. So like the professor's salary, like all these other things that go into the educational component of it. But then everything else is separate. So there's room and board, which is completely separate than tuition. That's part of a fee that you pay. There's like healthcare and access to the gym, or things like that are extra that are not included necessarily in tuition. And some of them you can avoid, some of them you can't. And so it just depends on what those fees are and sort of how crafty you can.
Because my next question is, so what can we avoid? And I'm going to tell you now, I'm going to be mad if I could avoid some of those things in my undergrad. So what are some of the things they can avoid, the charges we can avoid?
Well, if you really break it down in what the housing costs are, and if you look at it like rent, so maybe if you're paying, however much a month in a typical apartment, you could look at that from like a room and board perspective, because it's oftentimes a lot higher, because it can be a lot cheaper to live off campus than live on campus. But that should factor into your decision on where to go for college, is all these fees that are being tacked on.
All right, so we're going to take our first break, and we'll be back on the Leadership Blend with their host, Ricardo D. Rice. All right, so did you see Scott gives me the break. So when he does like this, that means I need to go to break. Which normally he counts me down. He just kind of just caught me off guard and said we're going to break, but it's fine.
You're right.
You get in a groove like that. I don't like to mess your groove up.
I mean, but normally you still give me numbers. I'm just like, I didn't even think about a break. I'm not even gonna lie. I didn't even think about a break.
Right.
It's a new season, people. It's a new season. And in this new season, I'm just kind of doing what I do. I'm having a good time. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, I saw you nodding your head over there a little bit.
Yeah, when you were talking about how stuff you can avoid, I was thinking, because I just finished, you can avoid like parking fees.
Oh, true.
You can avoid shuttles. You don't have to do that. I lived off campus my last 2 years because no matter what, and I personally had a vendetta against like how off campus housing. No matter what happens in the year, they go up every single year for no reason.
Mm.
They know people are going to go to schools, especially Kansas State that's so big. They know that they're going to go. So no matter what, they go up about $50 every month, every year, just because. And people are starting to not have places to stay because Cobb County has a dumb rule that says that more than 2 people unrelated cannot live in a household by themselves.
What?
Okay.
Yes.
So people are
going to Woodstock. People are going to Canton, having to move really far because of these ordinances. But yeah, parking, housing, computer use, you can like avoid all that.
See, I'm glad I didn't go to undergrad in Georgia, because every time I turn around, I hear some new dumb rule that they come up with.
That's a national something too, because in Connecticut, women, they couldn't be a sorority house because they'd be legally a brothel.
Mm-hmm.
So that
they say that too. They say that too. It's a mess.
You can't have sorority
Brothel's
houses.
one of my
County
favorite
too.
words. I just like the way it sounds. It's one of my favorite words.
That's like the word, yeah.
That's one of my favorite words. All right, so we are back on today's edition of the Leadership Blend with your host Ricardo D. Rice and my very special guest, Mr. Jeremy Harp. And we're talking about college. How do you get your child ready? What does it look like? Why does it look like it looks? All that good stuff. When we were on a break, they said we were talking about some laws that pertain to housing for college kids. And I have silly moments. So they use the word brothel, and brothel is one of my favorite words. I'm not gonna get into why. It's just it's the way it sounds when it rolls off your tongue. Brothel doesn't have a very good meaning, but the way it rolls off your tongue, and Jeremy's laughing because he's probably been to a couple of them. But just the way it rolls off your tongue. Sometimes you have to put them on blast. But yeah. So when we left, we were talking about charges and the charges that you can avoid when you're looking at the price of college. So he was going into that. So what were some of the things that you can avoid?
So again, it's housing and things like that. Meal plans are often optional and can be drastically overpriced, especially for the food that you get. And so that's another thing that you can do if you live off campus. You can cook. It can be a lot less expensive to maintain that eating lifestyle. But be
mindful of meal plans, because I think when I was going to Coastal for freshmen, it was mandatory they lived on campus.
Right.
So look into that. If you can get around it, please do, because I think that meal plan was expensive. I can only imagine what it is now. But typically, a lot of things will be required for freshmen. It's kind of a catch-22. So you definitely want to look into what is and what is not required, because there are some things, like he said, that you can get around. And teach your child to cook, because if they can get away with not having a meal plan, actually, they don't even have to cook, because Walmart has a ready-to-eat aisle that I shop on frequently that has pasta, steaks, all that good stuff. And it's not even because my friends pick at me about the microwave. I don't even have to put my steak in the microwave. It's already seasoned, everything. It comes in an aluminum bag. I just throw that bag in the oven, put it in for 30 minutes, and we're ready to rock and roll. Salmon too. So you can do that as well. So that's one of the things you can avoid. And he's going to keep going with some other. Was there some other ones that we can avoid?
Absolutely. The young lady mentioned parking fees and other housing and things related to your experience. So like often healthcare. So sometimes your school will require you to get the school's healthcare package, which if you're under 25, you can stay on your parents' plan anyway. So sort of you're double paying for health insurance. So there's just things like that you can really look into. Even if you don't want to have like access to the gym, sometimes schools will not let you pay for that. But it just depends.
It's a very expensive process.
But those are all lumped into what we call the billed expenses. So that's what the school will charge you to go there. But then there are things that are non-billed expenses, sort of like what you mentioned before, like with books and travel to and from the school. So if you have to fly to a different, because I had to fly to Connecticut for school. I lived in Atlanta, but I went to school in Connecticut. I had to fly to New York. That's got to be part of the process as well as a cost that the school didn't have to charge me. I just had to get there.
That's that catch-22. These are all the little beautiful things that you encounter.
But granted, they gave me a big scholarship, so I'm like, no, I'll take it.
Yeah, good old Yale. Eye rolls for people that can't see me. Good old Yale, because that's where he came from. All right, so after you've done your FAFSA, is that everything that goes into FAFSA? So you have to have your W-2s, and don't we get into types? Okay, I will say this. When I was going to undergrad, it was easier, and I'm not advocating for H&R Block by any stretch of the imagination. I do love them, but I'm not advocating for them. It was easier for me to take the first 2 pages of my H&R Block because it seemed like it catered to FAFSA. So I literally just pulled the numbers from each block on my return, the forms they give you. Because when you do your taxes, they keep a set, they give you a set. The set that I had, the first 2 pages, I could just copy and paste from my the set of papers I got from H&R Block on my FAFSA. I tried Jackson Hewlett one year. It was not as user-friendly. That may have changed. That was a long time ago. But a lot of stuff you can do yourself. In the old days, we had to go to guidance counselors because nobody understood. Now you can actually do it yourself. It's just a matter of being able to almost copy and paste the information off your W-2s or the papers they give you after you file your taxes and just putting it in yourself. So it's not as hard as one would think. You still want to pay attention, but it's not as hard as one would think.
Right. And there are a lot of services out there that'll help you navigate that process as well. And even people who've done it both before, they'll be able to help you as well to navigate that process. But one of the things, again, is to understand the cost. And so what I've brought here to share is
He just has my desk full of papers. I don't know what's going on right now.
is a net price calculator. And so that's where schools, a service that they have to show you about how much you would pay for a particular college. So I know they have something to say about what the tuition and build expenses are, and see sometimes even the cost of attendance. But this, you can put in your own personal information that's similar to a FAFSA, and then get a more unique and targeted estimation for what you would pay. And so for here, I have a net price calculator for Georgia State, Emory, and Morehouse.
All right, how'd you get to that? Where is that at?
It is a net price calculator, and I'm blanking on the website, so I have to get that for you guys next time. But it just, so what I did was I had a fictitious student who's a single, came from a single parent family who made $20,000 a year, hypothetically. So again, that's the same student for all three colleges. And as you can see what that would result in for these three example universities.
I'm not even going to tell you who's the highest, and by leaps and bounds is the highest. I'm actually disturbed. I'm actually disturbed by this.
So to be fair, here's also Mercer University, which is another private school, which has a similar
Jesus
profile. But again, once you start to really look at this stuff, that's why I told you the EFC sometimes doesn't matter. It's because the schools will still charge you what they're going to charge you. But this net price calculator tool is really helpful because it at least shows for undergrad what you can expect to pay. It's not necessarily saying this is exactly what you will pay.
What's the margin of error? Are we talking about like less than 10%?
I'm not sure, and I think that they make you sign this like, I agree that this is just an estimate sort of thing.
Okay.
Of, like, I'm not going to try to sue anyone for if my actual financial aid package is different from what I pull from here. But it is a good talking point if it is.
Yeah, and you want to be mindful of how much these colleges cost, because I'm looking at 4 colleges, and some of them, I'm not going to lie, I'm actually surprised at the cost of some of them, because some of them I actually thought was more or less, and some that I thought would be less or more. So you definitely want to look at how much college costs. Now, of course, both of us have gone to college, so I don't think either one of us would tell you not to send your child to college. You should, if they really want to go, and it's a major that can benefit them, you definitely want to send your child to college. What we're saying is there's a better way to do it that is less expensive if you know what you're doing. So that's the purpose of today's show. It's not to talk anybody out of going to college. I mean, I have student loans. I'm sure the Yale graduate over here doesn't, but I do because I did, get the master's and the doctorate and all that stuff. So I do. But there were things I learned after the fact that if I had known before, I know I would have done things differently. But I don't regret it because it comes in handy. When you write books and you sit on panels and you have radio shows, present company included, all this stuff makes it worth it. So you definitely want to make sure that you send your child to college. And let us not forget that there are programs in high school that you can enroll your child with that will give you waivers for them to take the SATs and the ACTs, that will take your child on college trips. Off the top, definitely want to get into TRIO programs, Upward Bound, Education Talent Search. Programs like that will definitely help get your child prepared. They will give you this kind of information as well. So you definitely want to get your child enrolled in those kind of programs. They're great. I did a couple of them. They were amazing. I definitely advocate for them. Shouts out to TRIO. I've actually been given an award from TRIO, but shouts out to TRIO. Great programs. You definitely want to look into them. Upward Bound, Educational Talent Search. Definitely look into those programs because they definitely make a difference. All right, one last thought before we go to break.
And then just also, I'd encourage people to have that, the Society of College Prep support. And I think one of these things that are so challenging is that it's challenging because a lot of people don't know and aren't sure. And so that's why I really did the book, is to sort of get that information out there as much as possible. So even if you don't have a student or you're not trying to do it yet, it's still great information to know to be of service to other people who may have children that be in that situation.
Yeah, because this whole college, like I said, I'm already nervous, and I've already done this 4 times. Just sitting by Jeremy with all these papers and all these numbers I'm looking at, it can be quite overwhelming if you don't understand what it is. But there's so much information out there. Like I tell people, research. and especially .gov and a lot of times .org. A lot of those great organizations, they want to help you make life easier. They want to help transition your child to college because having a college degree does make a difference. Now, granted, there are some places you don't have to go, but some certain majors that may not require college, but a lot of them do. So you definitely want to find an inexpensive way to send your child to the college that they want to attend. But we're going to take a break. And remember, while we're on this break, go to Amazon, buy my book, Calculated Conflict, get it, pre-sales. It's going to be great. We'll be back on Leadership Blend with your host, Ricardo D. Rice. I promised myself this year I have to really talk about my products.
I know, and that's what I'm trying to do too.
Yeah, because we be missing stuff. We be missing stuff. I got like 10,000, 50,000 people listening. I never pitch anything. Well, we're going to start pitching now.
Right.
All right, make sure you make notes of that. We're going to start pitching now and talk about this book and stuff.
I know, and
that's good things.
And that's the thing is that's what I think makes it difficult because when you go to someone and ask, they're not sure either. And so I'm trying to get this out as much as possible because it's just an overview and it makes people feel a lot better knowing this information, and it just condenses it.
Well, I felt bad looking at all those pictures. I like pictures. And they were simplified pictures, and they show you where to go and what to click. I mean, it doesn't get any simpler than this. It doesn't get any simpler than this.
Yep.
So, absolutely. All right, we got 2 segments left, so let's go on the other side. Because it's January, the stuff we were talking we're going to get into out the gate.
But they should have already...
Yeah, so when I come back, I'm like, okay, so we're going to look at the other side of it. It's January, your child has, let's go into that because we did the other part. That's enough for recap. Let's go on the other side. So your child has already gotten their acceptance letter, so what do I do now? So we'll start there.
It'll just still lead back to the financial aid part, though. Because then you have to say, all right, so how much is...
That's fine.
Okay, all right.
Wherever you want to go, like I said, we're on the other side now.
But yeah,
so wherever you want to go. This is ridiculous.
Isn't that crazy?
So you know I'm pissed off about Morehouse, right?
You know that's one of the more expensive colleges in Georgia.
And yet it's in the hood and got...
And it accepted. And so what?
It's
so like it'll also show. This is a person who makes $20,000. Their family makes $20,000 a year, but they also show the different like Pell Grants and stuff like that. And the loans. So sometimes they'll give you a loan and call it student aid.
Really?
Yeah. And so they'll cover your aid by giving you a loan.
You have to pay it back.
And you have to pay it back.
Oh my God.
And then say, well, now your gap is smaller, but it's not actually smaller because
it's ridiculous. All right, everybody, we are back on this week's edition of the Leadership Blend with your host, Ricardo D. Rice, and my guest, Jeremy Harp, my college prep expert. Scott, stop laughing at me. That slipped out. All right, so when we left, we were kind of doing a recap about FAFSA and some of the little ins and outs and the tricks of the trade. All right, so now we're going to go on the other side because it's January. A lot of these kids have already gotten their acceptance letters, so they kind of know what college they're going to. Now you're starting to get letters in the mail about financial aid and all that good stuff. So now we're going to take it from there. So let's pick up there. The child has just gotten their admission letter, and so where do they go? Where should we start?
So I think once you get the admission letter and decision, then you sort of do a second round of college comparison to say, okay, where do these colleges rank on my desire to attend them and what the benefit could be of going there. So a lot of times students already know and have an idea in their head of that sort of ranking, but then you have to do it again to look at, all right, this is like decision time. So what one am I going to pick? And a lot of times that also boils down to the financial aid package that you get. And so that again leads back to the financial aid component. And so the net price calculator gives you like a makeshift financial aid package for a hypothetical student and for your family. And so here you can sort of break down to see what loans you're able to get, which grants you're able to get, and how much institutional aid the school is able to provide you and your family, because that can help the decision as well to make that final college choice.
So we using a lot of terms. Let's break down some of these terms.
Okay.
Grant. What is a grant?
So it's essentially money you don't have to pay back from either the government or other sources. They'll just give you money. It's sort of like a scholarship where they give you money and they don't have to pay it back. So there are certain loans that are grants that people get. So like the Pell Grant is a big one. And based on your income, you can either get the Pell Grant or you don't qualify for it. And so just like different ones that'll be on your package from the college that you get accepted to.
All right, so when we talk about loans, Let's get into loans
Okay.
really quickly. So there are subsidized, unsubsidized. There's Stanford. What do these things mean to people? What would these things mean? What are the differences? Are there differences? Are they all just money you pay back?
It's essentially it's money you pay back, but the subsidized sort of gives you a break until you graduate. So they don't start accruing that interest until I think 6 months after graduation is when they start to ask you to pay it back. But then unsubsidized, it's as soon as you take it out that next day they're starting to charge you interest.
Is that fast?
Because it depends on like the APRs and how it's compounded and things like that. Getting into more of the financial side, 'cause that's also what I do for
I noticed you got really excited about that.
for my day job. But yeah, so that's sort of what it is, and it just depends on that. But essentially, it costs you more because they're charging you interest faster. And so people try to reduce the amount of unsubsidized loans they take out and, if possible, put it in the more subsidized category.
All right, so everybody remember that when you see this coming around. I'm just wondering, can you contest your financial aid packet if you don't like it?
Sure. You can absolutely talk about it. And a lot of people do. And that's something that I don't think people do enough, is to say, hey, I would like to be reconsidered or look at this thing and just ask questions, because you never know. Because if they may work with you and say, hey, I found this scholarship, that's $1,000, and you turned a 30-minute phone call into $1,000 scholarship. So so I absolutely can contest it and ask questions and see what else they have for you.
And hey, shout out to Miss Sherman, who used to work at Coastal, because I told y'all before when we did this show the first time, it's 3 people that you should make sure your child gets to have a personal relationship with. Their financial aid advisor, their provost, and one of their favorite teachers, particularly in their major. You should make sure they're friends with those 3 people, especially financial aid worker. Why? True story. My financial aid worker was Miss Sherman. Miss Sherman would always keep me in mind when it came to money. She would call me and say, hey, Ricardo, I'll never forget. She called me and said, hey, I found a need-based, check your account. I just put $750 in it because you qualify for a need-based loan. A need-based grant. Didn't have to pay it back, and actually that money was given to me. Now, I went to school in South Carolina. Georgia, I'm seeing is a little more tight with the financial aid money. South Carolina, thank God, they were a little more free-handed. They found some extra monies for us. But because I used to stay in her office, and I made sure that she knew who I was, when my name came across her desk, she always thought about me, and she would give me a nice call and say, hey, I put some money in your account. I found it. You qualified for it. It's a grant. You good. Take care of your college expenses. So make sure that you know and your child knows who their financial advisor is, because if they remember them, stuff like that can happen. Because there are guardian angels at colleges. I call Miss Sherman one of my guardian angels. Shouts out to Miss Sherman. She was great. I love her. She helped me get through undergrad without a bunch of loans. Because remember, the goal is, if your child plans on getting anything higher, a master's, a doctorate, anything of magnitude, don't let them use all their money in undergrad. And plus, they don't have a buttload of undergrad debt loans anyway.
Right.
Because it's just too much. There are ways you can get around it.
And it's especially now that when they get out, and sort of now that I've been out for a while, I'm looking at those next life steps. So buying cars, buying houses, at least, or even starting a family can get very expensive. And having all that, debt hanging over your head is making it more difficult for a lot of people to advance in that way. So
keep this stuff in mind. Don't saddle your child with all this debt because now was the time when they're going through undergrad to get all this money that's laying around. Because once they start going higher, it gets a little harder to find. But undergrad is the place where you can find money to make sure that your child goes to the college they want to go to, and it doesn't cost you an arm and a leg. So, that's the purpose of today's show, to figure all this stuff out. All right, so let's roll into, we've done the FAFSA, so we looked at it.
Right.
Little Timmy's going to, I don't know. We're not doing Yale, so don't even give me a look. We're not going to Yale. Little Timmy's going to Mercer. We've called it. We've contested the financial aid packet. Now we kind of got the money right. So where should we go from here? What should be next?
Well, I think that's the thing of making sure that the financial aid package is something that the parent and the student can handle. And that's something that a lot of parents need to consider, is what their student's likelihood of graduation is. I think that's another component as well, because some of these schools have 4-year graduation rates in the single digits. And so that's something that speaks to their likelihood of graduation. So if it takes you 6 years to graduate instead of 4 years, you have to pay tuition and build expenses for those other 2 years. And so sometimes you can't think about a school in 4 years, but have to think about it, can I afford this for 6 years?
Where would they find it at? Like graduation rates? I think you can get that through FAFSA, I think. I think that's
No,
what it says.
it's this website again on my website. It's College Chronicle, collegecompletion.chronicle, and it's one of those websites that'll give you a breakdown for each school that you want and what their graduation likelihood is. Collegecompletion.chronicle.com. And so here's an example in my book that I have for University of Georgia. So it tells you the likelihood of graduation of all students at public schools across the nation, private schools, for-profit schools, and even breaks it down by race and gender to see what group of people are more likely to graduate from a particular institution. So this is just another thing to consider when looking at colleges is, is my son or daughter likely, or even myself, likely to graduate from this institution?
And remember, the higher the number, the better it is, because there's nothing worse than you planning for your child to graduate in 4 years, and had you looked at their graduation rates, realized that most of their students don't graduate in 4 years, they graduate in 6. So that's the importance of graduation rates. And in his great book, which I'm looking at now, it is broken down, so it kind of gives you an idea of, like he said, and it's broken down quite nicely, in gender, ethnicity, all that good stuff, which some of these numbers are staggering. And the last time we talked about this is where we got into the whole HBC debacle, because a lot of those colleges, I think we said, did not have high graduation rates.
Not as high as we would think.
Yeah, that's we've had that discussion. HBCUs are, and let's remember the purpose of HBCUs. Initially, they were colleges for African American students or minority students because they could not be accepted into standard colleges. Nowadays, some of them are taking a different turn, and although they're needed and appreciated, you still have to be mindful because a lot of them are private, and they do cost almost double the cost of a public school. So you definitely want to be mindful. I know we want our minority kids to have the black experience, but be mindful of how much they cost.
And I think that's an important question to ask is, well, how much is the HBCU experience worth to you? And that could be different ranges for different people. To say, I could go to a Georgia State or University of Georgia or some other non-HBCU school for X price, but I'm willing to pay a premium of $10,000, $20,000, or however much it may be for that experience. But I just think it's not the best idea to just blindly say I have to pay whatever the school says that I should pay, because there are either other ways around it of getting scholarships or aid from other sources, which in that case go for it. But I just warn against that, just going because you just want to go.
Yeah, because Uncle Pookie and Cousin Ray Ray went to state, so now I want to go to state. Well, you might want to do your research on state because state has had accreditation problems and money problems, stuff like that you want to be mindful of because, again, there's nothing worse than going to a college that shuts down later on. And some of the HBCs have had that problem. They got shut down, so now what do you do with this piece of paper? And for-profits. Let's segue into for-profit institutions, which is schools that you pay that charge you to go to their school. So be careful with for-profit schools. The Argosies, the Universities of Phoenix, those schools are for-profit schools, meaning they're not state-run schools. So you probably won't get as much financial aid, if any. Things of that magnitude. These are the kind of things you have to be mindful of because, again, the more loans you get to go to college, the more money you have to pay back. And all of you can get deferments and all this good stuff, and those phone calls are excruciating because I have them all the time. With my loan people, those phone calls are excruciating, but if I would have thought better and made better decisions and did my research, they would not have been as bad as they were.
And even like going back to like the for-profit schools, some of them are the online schools. So you see them a lot to say, why drive to school? You can earn your degree online. Fair, but then also looking at how likely are people to graduate and how long it takes them to graduate. Because there's a lot of people who get into a lot of debt because those online classes are hard.
Yes.
And it is one, I don't think that I could do it because you have to be really disciplined to sit down and do your work when there's no one there making you do it. And so that's something that, I commend people who are able to do that, but I know myself and I just would not be that person. And so that their statistics sort of reflect that in that way.
Yeah, especially undergrad. I have kids that I work with at my job, and the answer they say, "Well, I'm not going to classes this semester. I'm going to go online." Nope, you're not going online because you can't even be disciplined at work. So you're not going to even believe you can be disciplined in school. Be mindful, parents, when your kids think about going to online classes because it takes a lot of discipline. But we're going to take our last break, and again, and I'm going to talk about this for the next week. While we're on the break, go to Amazon, get my book, Calculated Conflict. We'll be back on the Leadership Blend with your host, Ricardo D. Rice. They're going to grow to hate me because I'm going to pitch every time we go on break and before we leave.
You say what?
I said they're going to hate me because I'm going to go to, every time I go to break, I'm going to talk about it. Every time I come back from break, I'm going to talk about it.
I gotta talk about mine too.
So it's all good.
Go get mine.
All right, what do you want to do in your wrap up on the last segment? So this is what I normally do. We kind of go through stuff and have little discussions on the break, and then the people on YouTube get to see it.
So I think having conversations with parents and students, because that'll be the next thing. So sort of like once you get those acceptances, to sort of talk to your parents, talk to the students to say, what are you thinking now? Because you remember I talked about my parents and my conversation with them about them wanting me to go to the University of Georgia. You remember? No.
Vague. Look, I've done like 25 shows since then.
Right. Okay. So they wanted me to go to the University of Georgia. They were essentially going to force me to go because they knew I was going to get in and all this other stuff. And they were like, "All right, you're just done." So I never applied, and so they were highly upset, because I had to pay a lot more to go to Yale than they would have gone to the University of Georgia, and so yeah.
And the flights.
And the
Well,
flights.
you already had
every
your
time.
your plan in your head because you didn't even apply. So you already had a plan in your head.
I just didn't want them to make the decision for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the thing that I think they need to consider is the parents that have this idea of what they want. The kids have their idea of what they want, and if it doesn't match, then you get a headbutt.
I was thinking that. My friend had that problem.
Yep.
She went to UGA, she hated it, she came right back to Kennesaw. And the career choice problem too of mostly foreign parents wanting you to do this and the children doesn't want to do it.
Right.
So what now? Now I have a degree with something I'm not passionate about.
Fair.
Yeah.
And I don't know, let me see. I was something else. I forgot.
My bad. I have a question though.
Okay.
With need-based schools, that list you have?
All right. All right, everybody. We are back on our last segment of today's show, which was getting you or your child ready for college with Jeremy Harp. So in the wrap up, so we went back over FAFSA again. We've gone over application really quickly. So what should somebody have in their application to apply for college? What are they looking for?
So I go over this a little bit in my book about how colleges look at you and just do a high level. Of course, GPA is the number one thing really, and that's really what sets students apart from each other. And then two, test scores. And so those are really like the top things that schools really look at. The other things matter, like the essays, your resume and passion and things like that. But if you want the thing that'll move the needle, it'll be your GPA and test scores. So definitely study as much as you can and encourage students to practice on those standardized tests.
Now, parents, remember, and as somebody who had to do it, just because your child does not do well in school, there are other options for college. There are 2-year colleges, there are technical colleges. Most people do not know I went to a technical college because I was a late bloomer. So I did not do well in high school because I talked too much. But look at me now. Look at me now, Mom and Dad. Look. All the trouble I got into for talking too much, look at me now.
Right.
But I did not do good in high school, so I ended up going to a technical college, which was an amazing experience because they have great programs at technical college. Student support services was great. Shouts out to student support services. Rodney Adams, Janice Lau, Rhonda Cole. Shouts out to them. Just went to see them in Beaufort Technical College in Low Country. Shouts out to them.
And I think that more people should go to 2-year schools as a first step if they're kind of unsure or on that bubble about colleges. One, because it's a lot less expensive. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to sort of experiment with college, I'd rather students and parents do it for a lot less price point than to just fully jump in and then get twice as much debt and then still discover that it's not for you.
And then first 2 years is typically a repeat of high school anyway. So you can get those first 2 years knocked out at a technical school, transfer in as a
Right.
junior, which is what I did, transferred in as a junior to Coastal, did those last 2 years and kept it pushing. So there are options.
Yep. And then so again with the application, so there's a lot of things that should be done early. So like the essay should be done as soon as possible. So if you haven't already started the essay at least for these applications, start it today. Because it takes a long time to really craft a good essay and to really do it justice, because that's really what the admissions officers are going to be looking at you. That's how they're going to learn who you are as a person. So you really want that to be something that you spend a lot of time on. And then the last thing is letters of recommendation. So ask those teachers early, because you don't want a half-written letter
Okay,
of
when they're on their lunch break.
Like, I think I know this person. I mean, I guess they're okay. Sure. But yeah.
All right, so in your final thoughts, what do you want to cover in your final thoughts? What do you want to leave the listeners with?
So one, I want to make sure that people look at my website and go check out my book on collegeprepatlanta.org. It's just a really unique resource that gives as much information as possible in a very condensed format. And then two, I think parents and students need to have conversations more about what they want and desire with their college experience. So short story, so my parents wanted me to go to University of Georgia, and they sort of made that decision for me, at least in their own head. And so when it comes down to application, I never applied. I never submitted my application. I never did anything for that school.
Disobedient.
And they were highly upset, because I would have paid a lot less money to go to University of Georgia than to go to Yale. So they did not like that. But I, as a student, wanted to make sure that I made that college choice, or at least I had more of a say in that experience. So, and what happens is a lot of times parents, for 18 years, the parents are like, I can't wait till you out of the house. I can't wait till you get out. You just go away. At least for 17 and a half years. But that 18th year, they go, no, don't go. And then their parental instinct of like, oh no, you're going to leave. That's my baby. Sort of
Emptiness
kicks in.
syndrome.
And so then they don't want them to go out of state. Then they don't want them to go too far away. And then all these things come up. So that's why having conversations now and at each stage really has a better outcome for everyone involved.
All right. So today we went over again FAFSA. We went over admissions, all that good stuff. And again, there are less expensive ways to send your child to college, and there are other options if your child is not four-year college ready. So never. I don't still think we do trade schools and stuff like that. Do we still do trade schools and stuff like that?
I'm sure.
We have trade schools, vocational programs. Look, there are many different ways to get your child educated. So, we're not telling you not to send your child to college. We're telling you there's a less expensive way to do it, and we want to show you how to get that stuff done. Really quickly. So yesterday, for those that go on my website, you saw that I was looking for interns to start working with the Leadership Blend. So I held those interviews yesterday, and I thought by sure I was going to be able to. I had about 6 to 7 people I liked that actually showed up, and I thought I'd scare them off, and that did not happen. So you will be hearing new voices, and for those of you that watch the YouTube channel, seeing new faces. One of the first interns who came to me right after the interviews were over was like, okay, so I want to start today. I want to start tomorrow. So she's sitting in the back. Shouts out to Miss Shawnee Greer. She's sitting in the back, and she has her pad and her paper. So if you go to my YouTube channel, you can get a glimpse of her. But she started today. And, I just want to expand the empire, and there are so many projects I just cannot get to. So I want to give others the opportunity that are majoring in communications, journalism, give them a one-up to be able to get into the industries they want to break into. So it's about to get really exciting around here really soon. Like I said, new faces, new voices, all that good stuff. So that was just a little segue. As far as what we were talking about today for FAFSA, get it done, because it's January. And if you want to get these kids out of the houses, so now, granted, like he was saying, some of you will have empty nest syndrome, especially for those of you that only have one child and
Right.
It's time to go, and you've been telling me you're ready for them to get out of the house, and you get to the last minute, and now it's like, I don't want you to go, and I don't want to drop you off, and there's all these tears and all this good stuff. I've seen, I did first year experience when I was at Coastal, and to watch the parents drop their kids off, and there's tears, and it's like watching that scene from Color Purple with Celie and Nellie, and it's just like, me and you will never part, and you dragging them, and they're hanging on the trees. I've literally seen these things. But now was the time to make sure that you have everything in. So, is there a checklist? Do you have a checklist?
I can make one. So
Make a checklist real quick. So what should they have done by now? What's the checklist? They should have their FAFSA in. You
Right.
should have already applied to colleges. You said that some of their deadlines are actually now.
right. So the University of Georgia, Georgia Tech, those sort of schools, their deadlines maybe today or tomorrow. There's sometime soon. But some of the other schools were actually January 1st, December 31st for certain schools as well. But then there are a lot of other schools whose deadlines are coming or that are rolling, which means they don't really have a hard and fast deadline.
All right, so remember when you apply for college, you're definitely going to need an official transcript. Let me make the distinction real quick. And if anybody can go to your college or high school and ask for a transcript that they will print out really quickly to give you. That's an unofficial copy. You're going to need an official copy. What is an official copy? It's the one you have to go to the registrar's office or the administrator's office and tell them that you're applying for a college, or you have to say, I need an official copy. Most of the time, they're going to ask you where you're sending it, or they'll ask you where you're taking it. Because a lot of times they'll send it because it's official, has this little seal on it. And all. It's like some well-kept secret. It's like the Illuminati. It's crazy. But if you say you're going to put it in a packet, they will give it to you. They're going to give you an envelope that has a seal on the back of it or a stamp. That's an official copy. That's what you're going to need when you put together your packet for admissions to a college. So there's an unofficial copy and there's an official copy. Do not send these. Most of them will not take an unofficial copy, which is the one they're going to print off and give you real quick.
Right.
Tell them you need an official copy so that you can put it in your manila envelope along with your application, your letters of recommendation. What else might be in there? Letters of recommendation, the official copy of transcripts.
You need like portfolios. So maybe if you're an artist or you have some other unique characteristics that you like to share with the admissions office, they love to see that. So any other, personal artwork or things like that would go into the application as well.
So you want to put all that in your manila envelope. Again, make sure you have an official copy of your transcripts. Put that all together in a pretty little package. Don't go overboard. I've seen, because I worked in admissions for a little bit, don't go overboard. People were sending scratch and sniff folders and all kinds of craziness. Don't keep it cute. But you want to put all that stuff in your manila envelope, send it off, and then there's a waiting process to see, if your child gets accepted. It's a beautiful day when you get accepted. I remember when I got accepted to Coastal Carolina, it was actually the week of my grandfather's passing, and I was trying to decide what school to go to, and I got my acceptance letter on the day of his funeral. So I knew that I would still go to Coastal Carolina. It was an amazing experience. I thank God for it. But college is a great experience in general for your child. Make sure and I get on the kids I work with all the time, make sure when you go to college, you have the full college experience. Jeremy's sitting here right now. He think I don't know he got his little alpha bracelet on his arm, so clearly he did Greek. I was going to do Kappa. It didn't happen, but, all those good things. Make sure that your child gets the full college experience, because sometimes it's not just about academia. What did you do when you were there, especially if you plan on getting a master's or a doctorate? They're going to ask you extracurricular activities, law school. What did you do outside of go to school? Anybody can get a 4.0. But if you had a 4.0 and had 2 jobs, ran a student organization, and worked on campus, it looks a lot better. But it's been a great show. Thanks to Jeremy Harp for being here on today. Go out and get his book on your website. What's your website real quick?
collegeprepatlanta.org.
Go out and get his book. Then go to Amazon and get my book, Calculated Conflict. Again, you're going to see new faces, new voices from the internship program. Some of them will be starting next Monday. Shouts out to Miss Charnay Greer for sitting in the back today and taking notes, because I'm going to ask her what she wrote down when we get off the air. I will see you guys next week, same time, same place. Dr. Nikki Hill will be here to tell you about hair loss next week and how to keep your skin glowing and radiant. So I will see you next time, same place on the Leadership Blend with your host, Ricardo D. Rice.
Martin Luther King Day.
I know, right? I didn't even say anything about that. I feel so terrible. I didn't say anything about Martin Luther King Day. Shouts out to Dr. Martin Luther King. Thank you for all your great work. Thank you for allowing us to be able to sit here and be on radio shows and be on television and be doctors and lawyers. So shouts out to Dr. Martin Luther King and all the great people that work with him to spur the civil rights movement. I'm going to go do something in regards to him. I don't know what that is yet. We're going to do something.
You know what fraternity he happened to be in?
Oh, good God. Here we go.
You
You know what, Jeremy? If you're not hawking
Okay.
A Phi A, you're hawking Yale. Like, I'm tired of or your book. He been hawking all day. I'm not.
You gotta just hawk some sometimes.
We're just not going to do it. He been hawking all day. That's what we're not going to do. But thank you guys for tuning in. Shouts out to the intern over here in the corner.
Hello.
Miss Greer. I don't feel like turning the camera around this time. Y'all saw it the first time. So, again, like I was telling them, you're going to see new faces, hear new voices. from the internship program, which I'm really excited about. So it's going to be great. We're going to have a great year. Again, like I was saying on the air, go to my website. Oh, don't even go to my website. Go to Amazon. Get my. I don't feel like shipping books. Go to Amazon. Look up calculated conflict or my name. It will come up. $12.99. You spend more than that on a combo meal at Hardee's. I promise you, I did the other day. You spend more than that on a combo meal at Hardee's. Go ahead and get it. Trying to make you better leaders, make you more aware of what's going on. Go get his book at
collegeprepatlanta.org. It's $25, and
Jesus, your book that much?
it is
Get my book. Mine is $12.99. He trying to gouge you. Mine is $12.99.
$20.
That's
Oh man,
20 bones? Good
it's
God.
to save you thousands in all this information and financial aid and stuff like
You
that.
better start with that first. If you're going to be charging $20-something, you better start with that first. But go get his book. It's definitely worth it. Go get his book. Go get my book. We're giving you options. We're trying to educate and make you better people, make you help me make better decisions, better leaders, better college prep. This is what we do. So I will see you guys next week on the Leadership Blend. Next week's guest is Dr. Nikki Hill. She's going to be talking about hair loss and how to keep your skin beautiful and radiant. She's a dermatologist, I believe. I want to say. I think she's a dermatologist. She's great and she's beautiful. So she'll be here next week. So again, tune in, same time, same place. The Leadership Blend with your host, Ricardo D. Rice. And my special guest, Mr. Jeremy Harp. See you next week.
See you.